your 2026 informative champion, Ruth Donigian.
Heidi, I know you're out there watching. This one's for you. Ruth Donigian. Ruth Donigian. Ruth Donigian. This is just a sampling of the hilarious butcherings of my last name that I've heard announced from teachers' desks, Chick-fil-A drive-thrus, and the NCFCA national stage. People often assume that my last name is Irish in origin, hence the most common mispronunciation of Donigian. It's actually Armenian. You can tell if a last name is Armenian if it ends in the letters I-A-N or Y-A-N. And I've often said that if I meet someone who has Armenian ancestry, I automatically consider them family. Now, you may ask, why this fervent connection between simple ancestry? The answer lies in the one event that binds all Armenians together: the Armenian Genocide. According to Britannica, the Armenian Genocide was the systematic slaughter of the Armenian people between the years 1915 and 1920 by the then Ottoman Empire in what is now the modern-day Republic of Turkey. It is widely considered the first genocide of the modern age, but many countries, including Turkey and the United States of America, refuse to recognize it as a genocide. The Armenian Genocide is not just a dash in history. Rather, it serves as the trigger for every genocide to follow, and a warning of what happens when we put convenience over truth. Today, I invite you to join me as we explore the Armenian problem, the Turkish solution, and the eternal response to one of the most horrific crimes of the 20th century. First, in order to understand why the Armenians were considered a problem, we have to understand what Armenia is. Armenia has roots back to biblical times. Mount Ararat, where God placed Noah's Ark at the end of Genesis 8, was originally part of Armenia. Additionally, Armenia is widely considered the first nation to adopt Christianity as its national religion in 301 AD. Now, in 1299, Armenia came under the control of the highly Islamic Ottoman Empire and would remain under that control until 1922. Yet, according to historian Umit Kurt, quote, "Whoever ruled their homeland, a devotion to Christianity became a vital part of their ethnic identity, even as their neighbors increasingly adopted Islam," end quote. Christians in a Muslim world. This is a conflict centuries old, and it is from this conflict that the genocide would arise. See, to be Turkish was to be Muslim, and to be Armenian was to be Christian. Despite being minorities, Armenians held prominent positions in business, politics, and education. And similar to Pharaoh in Egypt, the Turkish government saw the success of this infidel minority as a threat to political power and religious purity, as outlined in the Quran. Starting in 1894, there were various disorganized massacres of the Armenian people, leading to the deaths of 300,000 Armenians. But under the shadow of World War I, the tone of oppression changed. "We must wipe out the Armenian name. We are at war. There is no better time to do so," declared one prominent Turkish politician. These words spelled out the final solution: ethnic cleansing. Ethnic cleansing was the Turkish solution to the Armenian problem. When you have a rodent infestation, you exterminate, right? When you view human beings as little more than rodents, your answer is the same. Like with most genocides, there was a justified cause, deportation, and then relocation. The justified cause came in January of 1915. According to Kurt, in an attempt to flank Russian forces, Ottoman leader Enver Pasha sent a unit up a dangerous route through the Sarakimush Mountains. This unit froze to death, but instead of taking responsibility, Pasha claims that local Armenians had sided with Russian forces to betray the unit. The government ordered the immediate disarmament of all Armenians, sending many who were serving with them during World War I back to Armenia and out of the eyes of the rest of the world. Then came deportation. Under the guise of protection out of war concerns, the Turkish government rounded up and marched thousands of Armenians to the Syrian deserts. A report from the American embassy in Armenia said that on these marches you could see, quote, men bound tightly together with chains, and women in the last days of pregnancy driven along like cattle under whip, end quote. One Turkish commander told his men that they were, quote, at liberty to do what they chose with the women and girls, end quote. Those that survived these marches arrived in concentration camps in the deserts, perhaps the first in history. Now, when you picture a concentration camp, you probably imagine the mechanical and calculated methods used during the Holocaust. The Nazis used gas chambers, medical experimentation, and hard labor. The Turks were not mechanical. Rather, they did as they pleased. Imagine, instead of being forced into a gas chamber, seeing your children lined up nose to neck as a Turkish soldier shoots down the line to see how many he can kill with a single bullet. That is the sort of brutality that occurred in the Syrian deserts, according to an American reporter. Smuggled photographs depict soldiers posing with decapitated heads, and girls as young as 7 would be publicly raped in front of their families. Now, my great-grandfather, Donigian, was blessed in that he managed to escape these marches, but his mother, my great-great-grandmother, did not. While she survived, she never spoke of what happened to her in the deserts. She would only ever spit when the Turks were mentioned. The final death count? At the end of 5 years, 1.5 million, or 2/3 of the Armenian population, was dead. 2/3 of a population. What was the response? Why is this still unspoken of to this day? For over 100 years, the modern-day Republic of Turkey has actively worked to cover up the events of the genocide, and the United States has let them. According to a 2002 BBC documentary titled The Betrayed, the only record within the Turkish historical archives of the genocide is the 1915 order for deportation. In 1994, former Turkish Prime Minister Siller said, "Our position is clear. The Armenian claims are unfounded." As recent as 2025, Turkish citizens have been arrested and imprisoned for even using the word genocide in relation to the Armenians. According to Article 301 of Turkey's criminal code, it is considered a denigration of Turkishness. Outside of its country's borders, Turkey has pressured multiple countries, including France in 1981 and Israel in 2002, into removing their support from Armenian organizations, simply because those organizations advocated for genocide recognition. What about the United States? Many of my resources during my research came from the American embassy in Armenia. It is not that the United States was unaware of the genocide. Former President Theodore Roosevelt said that the genocide was, quote, the greatest crime of the war, and failure to act against Turkey is to condone it. But we did condone it. See, the United States has access to key airstrips and military bases in the Middle East, access that has proved essential in the face of decades of Middle Eastern conflict. It has never been politically convenient to recognize the Armenian genocide. The world decided to forget, and thus the Armenian genocide set the tone for every genocide to follow. When you have an infestation, you exterminate. Author J.B. Shreve estimates that since 1915, a minimum of 78 million people have been victims of genocide. The most prominent example of this comes a few years after 1915. In 1939, when asked how he thought he could get away with his brutality, Adolf Hitler said, quote, "Who after all speaks today of the annihilation of the Armenians?" I am proud of my heritage. Every 2 years, about 100 Donigians gather together to honor our ancestry carried out in Entrenig, his 8 children, and their many descendants. It is one of the greatest honors of my life to share this story. But beyond the love of stuffed grape leaves and baklava, my Armenian heritage paired with my Christian faith puts on me the responsibility to stand before you today. I said at the beginning of this speech that this story is a warning. It's a warning about convenience. I understand. The evils of this world are so overwhelming, and sometimes it's easier to put down the phone, turn off the news, and stay in the safe bubble of our personal lives. It's easy to forget something if we don't name it, right? But when we choose to forget because it's convenient, we condone evil. As Christians, it's not just a recommendation that we come to the aid of the needy. It is a commandment. Proverbs 31:8 says, "Open your mouth for the mute, for the rights of all who are destitute." Our mission starts, my friends, with giving evil a name. It starts with sharing this story and others like it. It starts with speaking for the unborn and other minorities who are targeted by evil and do not have a voice. It starts with leaving the safe bubble of our personal lives and saying, "Lord, here I am." As a Donigian, Donigian, I want that to be the prayer of my heart. And as you all look out into this world, where will you say, "Lord, here I am"? God be with you all. Or asfats hedelvach. Thank you.